Welcome to your in-depth weekly astrology overview and zodiac forecast for week commencing the 23rd of December. I'm going to give you some standout details to look out for, then on screen share the event chart right at the start of the week. Then I'm going to give you the detail of the week frame by frame. This hopefully will give you a clear picture of what to expect in what can be a very enjoyable but sometimes a little bit of a stressful time. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundell. If you're new here, you're very welcome. If you have any thoughts, please do share them. If you're a returning visitor, your views and interactions are truly appreciated. If you've yet to sub to the channel, please do so now. Help it to thrive, but also click the like button and share the videos too as well. If you would like to have a one-to-one with me, I am a consulting astrologer. Please check out my testimonials below. You can book a reading for early in the new year and get a real deep insight into what your prospects for 25 are. If you're wanting to explore the new year in terms of a written report, you can take advantage of my special package. There's 30% off, based totally uniquely on each person it's produced for. But you also get my free gift of your Zodiac, General, Love, Chinese and Vedic written forecast, as well as your life roadmap report, which is critical. That's what really helps us to understand ourselves. The forecast helps us to time our moves over the next 12 months. If you've yet to watch your year 2025 deep dive video for your zodiac sign, please see the link below for more. This week begins with the quarter moon in the sign of Libra. Now, Libra likes to keep the peace, but it is clashing up with the position of the sun, which is in the very authoritative but slightly stodgy sign of Capricorn, potentially. But we also have the nodal axis clashing with the sun at the start of this week as well. If we do find ourselves in an environment where we're really expected to fit in without any kind of interaction, it could be something that's rather triggering for us, and that's obviously what most people want to avoid. But the reason for that is the North Node's coming to the end of its journey in Aries, but it has all been about celebrating our need to express what we want to do as individuals. So the sign of Capricorn is much more about traditionality. But of course, tradition is a big part of this time of the year, and it can be what makes it so special. The nostalgia, the songs, the hymns, the games. And part of that, of course, is that we end up spending time with people that perhaps we wouldn't ordinarily do. And because the ruler of the sign of Capricorn, Saturn, clashes exactly with Jupiter, the planet of growth, in its retrograde, but detrimented in the quick speaking Gemini, it's possible that some old issues could boil into the open, particularly with Venus and Uranus coming into conflict in the second half of this week. I'm also going to share with you exactly what's going on planetary wise on Christmas Day itself. But now on screen I'm sharing the event chart. So there you can see the sun is at 1 degree in the sign of Capricorn. So it's just entering its journey through this sign, as it always does at this time of year. But you can see the moon's just moved on from the exact square, the quarter moon, but that's at 2 degrees 24 in Libra, but very close to the south node, which can be our habitual behavior where we retreat when we're under pressure. And ironically, the ascendant on this event chart at midnight at the very start of the week is at 1 degree 25 in the sign of Libra. So we could experience something this week where, as much as we try to lean in to what's expected of us, someone may still not be particularly satisfied, which could create a lot of frustration. But you can see the North Node there, ironically, is in the 7th house, which has a kind of Libran feel. So if we can just bend our need to be ourselves into some form of of diplomacy, that is really going to be helpful. But you can also see that Venus, the planet of relating, is in the free-spirited sign of Aquarius in the 5th house, so you can't really get much jollier than that. And if you're lucky enough to be loved up, that's magical. It may even be that you've connected to someone in a social way in the run-up to Christmas in a way that has made your pulse race. But in existing relationships, Venus is set to clash with Uranus later in the week. I will go through that shortly. But the energy of Venus in Aquarius is great if we are in a situation where with lots of different people and we do have an opportunity to be social, but also celebrate the things we have in common rather than the things that make us different. Now, in terms of the exact timings of the big influences of this week, that square between Saturn and Jupiter on Christmas Eve is mighty. The last time it occurred was on the 12th of August. It's going to be happening next year on the 15th of June, but by that time Saturn will be in Aries and Jupiter in Cancer. If we think about it, Saturn can be about containment, which can be challenging in the limitless energies of Pisces, but Jupiter in Gemini can be a quick exchange of ideas, can be very bubbly, but Jupiter is retrograde and of course it is detrimented. So it's possible, because of the deep-rooted nature of Saturn in Pisces, which is the sign of emotional culmination, that something that's rather older could, if it's been festering, be triggered this week and come into the open. But we also have, from Tuesday through to Sunday, Mercury and Jupiter in an opposition, which reaches its peak on Thursday. So we have a T-square essentially between Saturn. Saturn's the kingpin, if you like, between Mercury in Sagittarius, like Jupiter in Gemini, detrimented, but at least moving forwards. So they can be very bubbly, but Saturn's there like an anchor, reminding us of the need to be as sincere as possible. However, as the week goes on, the square between Venus and Uranus reaches its own peak on Saturday. And if you are in a situation where someone's being very, very challenging, particularly if you feel your personal space is being influenced, which is entirely possible in Christmas week, or it feels in a long-term relationship that maybe something isn't working very well. And Uranus can be outspoken, of course, particularly in Taurus about money. It can also see us want to be perhaps a bit more spontaneous with our resources. So if there is something that grabs your imagination in the winter sale, but a partner doesn't agree, if you're feeling more impulsive, a partner's disapproval could also be an ignition point. So there is potential for challenges. And then on Christmas Day itself, halfway through the day, the moon moves into the deep penetrative Scorpio, but it does square up with Pluto. So once again, Pluto in Aquarius, like Venus, is about the collective, but if there is some jealousies or possessiveness or control issues which have been really rumbling away in the dark, they could come into the open. But I hope for you, you have a lovely Christmas week. If you are spending the actual day on your own, you'll be very much in my thoughts. It's a very, very difficult thing to get through on one's own. There's some people that I've known that are absolutely fine about it, but for many people it might be because people have moved away or through personal circumstances, a separation or a divorce, and it can be extremely painful. So you will be very much in my thoughts. Please stay with me as I go through each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces. But if you've yet to do so, please do check out those deep dives for each of the 12 signs for year 2025. So Aries, your week commencing the 23rd of December forecast begins with your ruler Mars still in retrograde, and it could see you feeling a bit frustrated if the week is not going to pan out quite as you would like, because I feel that Mars in Leo can be very sociable. But even if you don't get exactly all your needs met, Mars is still forging a very powerful link to the moon at the start of the week, but also to the north node in your sign. And if you are someone who's very playful and you do like to entertain people, you have a very colourful part of your nature, this could be a great week to showcase those skills. But if you have been working through something that is more sensitive and tender with Saturn and Neptune in your 12th house, this is probably a week when you may want to put some of those issues to one side, which is totally understandable. And for sure, with Pluto and Venus in your 11th house, they can be very playful and interactive. But also I feel that the Sun in Capricorn can bring out your natural leadership skills. So you'll be the person who's very mindful of what's going on with other people, whether their drinks are full, whether they've got a plate of food, and being as inclusive as possible, particularly because in terms of the event chart, the North Node flips and it's actually in your 7th house. So your people skills can really prosper this week for sure. But if you have been getting to know a particular friend recently, or you've had a long-standing friendship, it's possible with Venus and Uranus coming into conflict as the week draws to a close, that if you do have different values, they can become more obvious. And as you set your intentions in readiness for the Black Moon, which occurs on the Monday following this week's Monday, so a Black Moon is the second new moon in the month, that's very much about your career prospects and how you're going to interact with the world at large in 2025. But I feel some big shifts are going on for you, and you may be orientating your thinking for the long term in a different way. So some of the conversations you have this week could be very revealing, and someone, a kind of wise old sage, could give you some insights which are rather surprising but could be hugely valuable. I hope you have a great week. Happy Christmas. Your year 2025 personal forecast. You can get your free gift of your Zodiac General, Love, Chinese and Vedic written forecast and 30% off. Please click the link below for more. So Taurus, your week commencing the 23rd of December forecast begins with the Sun finding its feet in your 9th house, which can be very much to do with exploration, independence and adventure. If you are heading off somewhere different over the festivities, you're going to be able to surf that energy really well. But the quarter moon at the start of the week, but also the nodal axis square to the Sun, could see you feeling a little guilty if you feel you're not quite pulling your weight on the normal chores and obligations that you fulfilled in the past. But then the converse can be true. You could find yourself pinned into a situation where you're going to give your best, but in some ways your freedom does seem in some ways constrained, and that could create some frustration. So that's part of the dynamic there. But with Mercury and Jupiter in an opposition, there is that part of you that can be hugely generous. So if you're buying some last minute Christmas gifts, the chances are you won't hold back. But the T-square that's forged to Saturn is asking you to think about how you marshal your resources into the new year in terms of the long term. So even though you have an innate appreciation of quality, and if you do buy gifts for people, they're often absolutely stunning, Saturn's just saying to you, okay, Christmas is one segment and it may be something you want to do well. But in terms of as you go into the new year, if you're needing to reorientate your longer term planning, because of Saturn being in the 11th house, it may in some ways be to do with some of the people you network with. And you could be discovering that not everybody quite fulfills your expectations, which could be very disappointing. Now on Christmas Eve, because Jupiter, which can be very lucky in the 2nd house, is squared off by Saturn in the 11th house, it's incredibly important to be utterly realistic about your expectations around finance, but particularly in the first 2 weeks of 2025. That said, your ruler Venus is right at the top of your chart. You could find yourself thinking a lot about a creative idea or some talents that you have that could be repurposed in some way that could earn you a living. And that creative part of your nature that Uranus has been provoking full time since March 2019 has perhaps made you also rather restless. And you may have tried some different approaches, but might not quite have nailed down the one you really want to stick with for the long term. So I feel that there could be some discussions around some of those ideas, and part of you might even feel a bit impulsive if there are some opportunities to explore and do your market research, but even make some purchases which would help this idea go forwards. I would say it's probably better to wait till later into January before committing any funds, unless you've really done some extensive research. But that said, as the week draws to a close, it is preparing us for the black moon, the new moon in the sign of Capricorn, your sister Earth sign. And if you're not able to get away from it all over Christmas, the chances are you could through the first 3 or 4 weeks of January. So whether you're going off for some sun or some skiing or to see some friends or having a weekend away or hitting the January sales, some kind of change can be just as good as a rest for you. I hope you have a great Christmas, Taurus. Your year 2025 personal forecast. You can get your free gift of your Zodiac General, Love, Chinese and Vedic written forecast and 30% off. Please click the link below for more. So Gemini, your week commencing the 23rd of December forecast begins with that quarter moon in your sister air sign of Libra, which for you is very much about effervescence, warmth, affection, the potential to socialize. Perfect for this time of the year. But there could be someone around you who actually is set to suffer with a little bit of the green-eyed monster. Yes, they may want you all to themselves. Now, if it's a close romantic relationship, these kind of tensions can be part and parcel of this period. But because the moon is also aligning with the nodal axis and squaring off to the position of the sun, which is in the 8th house of your chart, those politics which may have been simmering under the surface for some while could come up. That said, your ruler Mercury is in your sector of relating. It does go face to face, exactly, again, with Jupiter in your sign because of the retrograde. It's being repeated. So there's still plenty of potential to be optimistic despite Jupiter's retrograde. It's just by Christmas Eve, Jupiter does firmly clash with Saturn. So Jupiter for you in your sign is very much giving you a platform to express what makes you unique and individual. Saturn in your 10th house is much more to do with worldly expectations. You could come into contact, particularly because of the time of the year, with someone who has a very set expectation of how things will be. And because there is part of you that does want to be more bubbly and exuberant, that could be something that really sticks in your craw, that they're not flexing into your needs. And because Venus is squaring up in the part of your chart to do with freedom, to Uranus in your 12th house, the things that are hidden, if those tensions that have been in the background are profound enough, they could come absolutely into the open. But what that can do is, in a way, push you to break out, do something for you, liberate yourself from some of those cloying demands, particularly if someone is rather too possessive and controlling. But essentially, the sun being in the 8th house as it is now is very much to do with transformations as you go in to the end of this week, and the moon's preparing to move at the start of next week to the part of your chart combining with the sun in Capricorn, the 8th house. That desire for transformation is going to be even stronger with the black moon that occurs just before the end of this year. So as much as there may be someone's desire and need to get what they want from the situation, you have choices in this, and you have power too. The power to do as you want for your situation. And therefore that square between Venus and Uranus could see you want to spin out completely if you feel that it has just become too draining to try to meet those needs and expectations, especially if it's bending you in two in terms of what you really want to be. And that opposition between Mercury and Jupiter, I think, really means that you're wanting to enjoy some lightness, some froth, and why not? Have a great Christmas, Gemini. Your year 2025 personal forecast. You can get your free gift of your Zodiac General, Love, Chinese and Vedic written forecast and 30% off. Please click the link below for more. So Cancer, your week commencing the 23rd of December forecast sees the sun finding its feet in the sign of Capricorn. Very much about your relationships. And relationships at this time of the year give us a huge opportunity for enjoyment, but also, of course, can bring some challenges. But think, Pluto has been in your sector of relating for the most part since 2008. It's recently moved on, but has taught you a lot of lessons, perhaps about what you will or will not accept. So in terms of your boundaries, but perhaps also given you some profound insights into understanding how other people can react. So the quarter moon, which is in the very emotional for you, 4th house, right at the start of this week, suggests that if someone close to you is a little bit below par, not quite joining in as you would expect, all those experiences that Pluto have given you can very much come in handy. Also, Mercury, the planet of communication in a very practical area, goes face to face with Jupiter in a very spiritual dimension by tuning into why people might be reacting in a particular way, but also being very earthy in how you might meet some of their needs. Perhaps in some ways a thoughtful gesture that could ease any potential for challenges. But no doubt with Venus in the very deep and passionate 8th house, if you have connected to someone in the run up to Christmas, there could be a sense of excitement and things could be very vivid, particularly with the square with Uranus. This may be someone who's very, very different to you, but that could be what makes them so alluring. But because on Christmas Eve, Jupiter, the planet of growth, and Saturn, the planet of constraint, come into an exact square, just be aware that something that may have been somewhat hidden could come into the open, and that obviously can happen over the festivities. But what you will have at the start of next week is a stunning black moon, the new moon in Capricorn, which is going to give you an opportunity through the first weeks of 2025 to really work on even the thorniest of interactions. And as long as the will's there, both on your side and the other person's, some mutual and greater understanding could develop. But equally, you could find that that person that you've met in a very sparky, perhaps unpredictable way could become something more long-lasting in your life, or may pretty quickly become part of your past history. So it just depends on your personal situation. But with those very close ongoing relationships, just use all that knowledge you've accumulated since 2008 to navigate the week. Have a great week, and wishing you a very peaceful Christmas. Your year 2025 personal forecast. You can get your free gift of your Zodiac General, love, Chinese and Vedic written forecast and 30% off. Please click the link below for more. So Leo, your week commencing the 23rd of December forecast begins with a quarter moon in the sign of Libra, very much about relating and communication. The third house for you, quick communications, but also the nervous system, and the sun in house 6, very much about practicalities and details. But this particular aspect can see us get a little stressed, particularly if we try too hard. And one of the great features of Christmas, particularly if we're hosting, is that we like to make it perfect. And I would try to let go of that aspiration, to be honest. There's a very bubbly opposition between Mercury and Jupiter, repeated for the third time because of their two respective retrogrades, and that peaks on Thursday. And that part of you that can be very warm and charismatic can be turned up to max. The challenge, unfortunately, is that on Christmas Eve, on Tuesday, Saturn applies to Jupiter for the second time this year. And if there is a deeper strand in your situation, perhaps it's some politics, it may be to do with finance, to be honest, that is causing some concern, it may be hard to completely spin out from that. That said, if you are hosting, Venus is in your sector of relating, your natural diplomacy can be enhanced by that, but it too comes into a complex right angle by the end of this week in a square with the freedom-loving Uranus. And as much as you may enjoy having people around, you may enjoy going somewhere else, there could be part of you that by the very end of this week might be happy to kick back, kick your slippers off and have a few moments purely to yourself to really decompress from what may be a very jolly time, but I feel we'll have some moments, not least on Christmas Day, when the moon moves into the deep and passionate sign of Scorpio and squares up with Pluto. And if there are some politics going around, however much you want to keep that sense of equanimity that the quarter moon is asking you to find, it's possible that the political reality that's bubbling underneath the surface may be poking its head, demanding your attention. I do hope you have a great week, Leo. Your year 2025 personal forecast. You can get your free gift of your Zodiac General, Love, Chinese and Vedic written forecast and 30% off. Please click the link below for more. Virgo, your week commencing the 23rd of December forecast could see you with the urge to splash out to get some last minute Christmas gifts. Or perhaps if there's something in the winter sales that's catching your eyes, you may find it even at this late part of the year really hard to resist. The reason for this is the second fifth house quarter moon, which can see us more speculative. It can also see us a bit more impulsive, particularly around those gifts. But if you have been feeling quite a lot of tension, either in terms of your home and personal life or professionally, that can all come up to the boil this week, unfortunately. And particularly on Christmas Eve, if there has been a lot of demands in terms of a line manager or your work and the processes that you have to go through, the square between Saturn in your sector of relating and Jupiter, which is very much to do in the 10th house, how you meet the world, it may feel as if your enthusiasm is constantly quelled by someone's questions, exacting demands, and lack of appreciation. The great news, however, is that your ruler Mercury does meet up in an opposition with Jupiter later in the week, and you could have through the festivities a really important heart-to-heart, and it may be with someone who's actually very worldly and can give you some important insights into how you might handle this tense situation. Then again, maybe it's your life experiences and wisdom that you're going to share with someone else. But the part of you that can be very practical is definitely enhanced by Venus. But Venus does square off with Uranus later in the week. And if there is someone that, however much you're trying to understand what's going on with them and doing your best to tune into them, if they're really not being particularly receptive to that help or support, by the end of the week, I feel that with Uranus squaring up to Venus, you might deserve a little bit of free time to yourself. And if you could do something completely spontaneously, maybe, for example, book a holiday for the following year, or perhaps meet up with some friends who are more free-spirited, I think that's going to be the absolutely perfect antidote to all these recent stresses and strains that may have played out in your situation. Have a great week, Virgo, and happy Christmas to you. Your year 2025 personal forecast. You can get your free gift of your Zodiac General, Love, Chinese and Vedic written forecast and 30% off. Please click the link below for more. So Libra, your week commencing the 23rd of December forecast begins with the moon in your sign, making you particularly mindful of what you need from the week. It's just the sun in house 4, the sign of Capricorn. It's very much to do with what other people may expect from you, particularly family members. And of course, this time of the year does often come with a degree of expectations. So you could find yourself a little bit conflicted this week between going with what's absolutely right for you and also fitting in with those expectations. But you know, there's still some wonderful opportunities. Mercury is opposing Jupiter. It's a very bubbly, effervescent opposition, and that part of you that is an ace communicator, despite Jupiter's retrograde, can be turned to max. It's just on Christmas Eve, Jupiter is conflicted by Saturn in your sector of responsibilities. And if there are some demands, chores, and things that you need to get done just in time for Christmas, they could feel a little bit oppressive. But the position of your ruler Venus in the 5th house, that's tremendously playful and social. And also on Christmas Day itself, the moon does move out of your sign and into Scorpio. Now that's the 2nd house, and that's perfect for enjoying those more sensuous elements of Christmas, the good food, the good wine. But it does square up to Pluto in your 5th house. So you may find that it's difficult to resist all those calorific goodies that I often speak about. But by the end of the week, because Venus goes into a right angle with Uranus, you could be in the mood to be a bit more provocative, particularly in a romantic relationship. There could be some tension between you and your partner, but also some tension that can draw you together as much as push you apart. But maybe there can be a frank exchange. Also, if there has been someone that's been creeping up on your senses, you could be tempted by the end of this week to completely spontaneously get in touch with them and just see how it may play out. Have a wonderful Christmas, Libra. Your year 2025 personal forecast. You can get your free gift of your Zodiac General, Love, Chinese and Vedic written forecast and 30% off. Please click the link below for more. So Scorpio, your week commencing the 23rd of December forecast sees the obvious impactful energies of this week itself, but also the longer term vibe. Saturn, for example, for the last couple of years has been asking questions around your creative talents, pushing you to work harder on them, but also perhaps around your love life. And this week, Saturn does meet in a right angle with Jupiter, the planet of hope and growth, in your 8th house. That's where we tend to be most invested. If there are some tender issues around a romance, particularly with the quarter moon in your 12th house at the start of this week, it may be difficult to avoid them. Something could come up. Someone could share a point of view that's rather uncomfortable to hear. That said, Mercury's opposition with Jupiter means that if you're a more entrepreneurial type of Scorpio, you could have a conversation sharing your ideas with someone and they could give you some excellent feedback. Now on Christmas Day, the moon moves into your sign, but goes into an immediate right angle with Pluto in your 4th house. Pluto there for the 3rd time now is going to be pushing you over the years to come to evolve in terms of how you share your emotional world and understand your inner workings. Venus is there as well, which can give you a desire to keep things very much in equilibrium. It's just by the end of the week, Venus goes into a right angle with Uranus in your sector of relating. So this is quite a tender Christmas, I feel. If you're someone who's surrounded by people that you're very familiar with, I feel that you're going to really relax and there's going to be lots of lovely exchanges. But if you are in a situation where there are some complexities around any kind of involvement, those could show up. But by the end of the week, if you do have a heart-to-heart or a frank exchange, at least it can help you to clear the air. Have a fabulous Christmas, Scorpio. Your year 2025 personal forecast. You can get your free gift of your Zodiac General, Love, Chinese and Vedic written forecast and 30% off. Please click the link below for more. Sagittarius, your week commencing the 23rd of December forecast starts off in a really bubbly way because the moon's in the most friendly, sociable part of your scope. Your ruler Jupiter may be in retrograde, but it is in your sector of relating, goes face to face with Mercury as the week goes on, and that can also bring some sparky interaction. What's not to like? Well, it's just that Jupiter is challenged by the restrictive energies of Saturn on Christmas Eve. Maybe around your home and emotional world, there are some demands or expectations which could in some ways feel a bit inhibiting about your desire to be more playful and interactive. That said, the position of the moon on Christmas Day does get a lot more thoughtful, and that does square up with Pluto in your sector of quick communications. So there could be something that comes up and gets shared that day, but by the end of the week, Venus, like Pluto in your 3rd house, in the part of your chart, is very much to do with just enjoying fresh sparkling encounters. That does itself get squared off by Uranus, and that can create a little bit of nervous tension. So perhaps by the end of the week, despite all the interactive possibilities, the sun being in the 2nd house, which certainly can give you an appreciation of all the traditional fare when it comes to the food and the drink, by the end of the week you may just want to in some ways spin out, have a little bit of that legendary spare time, that space which is important to you and completely understandable. But I think on the whole, despite the challenge of Saturn to Jupiter, which is really a big picture aspect, it's really asking you to become very conscious of what the impact of certain involvements are having on you. But it doesn't have to only be in a romantic context. It could be the demands that you have from people who are very close to you, and perhaps you're being asked in some ways to set a boundary at what can be quite a tender part of the year. I do hope you have a magical Christmas, Sagittarius. Your year 2025 personal forecast. You can get your free gift of your Zodiac General, Love, Chinese and Vedic written forecast and 30% off. Please click the link below for more. So Capricorn, your week commencing the 23rd of December forecast begins with the sun getting more established in your sign, which is terrific. You're going to feel more in the moment. Mercury is still in your 12th house, which can be complex, but it is in a buoyant opposition to Jupiter as the week goes on. Perhaps some of the things you've been working through, thinking about, understanding more about your deeper motives, but perhaps also some of your concerns around life can be clarified with Jupiter's help, but it will require a discussion. And Saturn, your ruler, challenges Jupiter on Christmas Eve. Also, right at the start of this week, the quarter moon means that your emotions can be quite close to the surface. But there is an opportunity for you to make progress still, even at this part of the year, in terms of how you value yourself. Also, how you value your money or your resources. That's because of Venus and Pluto being in your second house. They're both forging angles to other players as the week goes on. And in fact, Venus's right angle to Uranus towards the end of the week could give you the nudge to be more spontaneous, particularly if you see something that really is good value. Perhaps it's going to be in the sales and it's something you may decide to make a move on quite spontaneously. But that energy that has been so powerful in the most psychological part of your chart, it's still there, but the practicalities of Jupiter in the 6th house, the way you're thinking about those, can help you to realign certain parts of your situation that maybe have been draining you. But that could mean, in some ways, saying no to certain demands and expectations. And that's where Saturn's right angle to Jupiter comes in. But essentially, as the week draws to a close, you're moving towards the black moon in your sign, which will be at the start of next week. That's going to superpower you forwards, giving you an opportunity to motor into 2025 in truly top form. Have a great Christmas, Capricorn. All the best. Your year 2025 personal forecast. You can get your free gift of your Zodiac General, Love, Chinese and Vedic written forecast and 30% off. Please click the link below for more. So Aquarius, your week commencing the 23rd of December forecast sees the sun finding its way in the 12th house, but this year for the first time without Pluto being in occupation. And that's meant, I feel, for some years that when it's come to the festivities, just at the time that Christmas is really upon us, there may have been part of you that has wanted to withdraw a little bit or has certainly felt a lot more sensitive. Now, it's possible with the quarter moon that if there are still some strands bubbling around, that quarter moon can in some ways amplify that tenderness. But you still have Venus in your sign, which is drawing goodness to you and perhaps some admiring glances. There could even be someone who's wanting to get to know you, but your instincts might be to keep it between yourselves. But the interactive link between Mercury and Jupiter can be very bubbly. So for the first time in many years, you can find yourself a lot more jolly. It doesn't mean to say that part of you that does require a little bit of space, a little bit of privacy and quiet time isn't going to come up this week, but I feel it's going to be much less prevalent. Now, of course, Saturn and Jupiter, Saturn, your traditional ruler, do come up to the boil in a right angle that was there last in August. When it comes to being speculative, if you do get chatting with someone over the holiday and you are thinking about different options that you might go for, using your resources or your talents and experiences in a different and fresh way, I wouldn't dive into it. Over the first 2 weeks of January, Saturn and Jupiter are going to be within 3 degrees of an exact right angle. So I feel that the energy is running against you a little bit, but do wait until the end of January. The 29th sees a sensational new moon in your sign. And this energy that you're working your way through with the sun being in Capricorn will just spirit away with Mercury moving on the 28th into your sign, merging with Pluto. Then the new moon itself is really going to give you a platform to be much more enterprising and daring. But on the whole, I feel that this is going to be a more outgoing Christmas, a Christmas when you're going to enjoy the warmth, traditional features, and even if there are some moments you need to yourself, overall, I think your desire to connect is going to be that much greater. But There could be an electric connection to someone that you already know by the end of the week, as Venus clashes with your modern ruler Uranus. But this could happen very, very quickly. But the converse could be true. If you have been getting to know someone of late and it's felt great to have some kind of romantic dimension to the festivities, you might decide by the end of this week that that person isn't necessarily for the long term. But also in an existing relationship, if things have become a little bit edgy by spending time together, perhaps the best thing to do is go out and have some you time as the week draws to a close. Have a fabulous Christmas, Aquarius. Your year 2025 personal forecast. You can get your free gift of your Zodiac General, Love, Chinese and Vedic written forecast and 30% off. Please click the link below for more. So Pisces, your week commencing the 23rd of December forecast. It's really interesting because whilst the sun is in a very social part of your chart, you do have two players in a much more muted, sheltered and reflective area, not least Venus, the relator, but also the very psychological energies of Pluto. They're both forging links to other planets this week, but also Saturn in your sign, which has brought a kind of more limiting energy, a more restrained vibe the last couple of years. That's applying to your traditional ruler of Jupiter in your sector of home and emotion. Whether it is friendships through the quarter moon that feel a bit constraining, and maybe you feel that people want you to join in when perhaps you'd rather maybe keep it a bit more fluid, or it is to do with people closer to you, you might have to push yourself a little bit to join in. Now, Christmas Day sees the moon move into Scorpio, your sister water sign, and ordinarily that's a great place for you, but because of the timing, the 9th house of that can be about a need for space, but it also clashes with Pluto in that 12th house. If there are any tender issues, they could be aroused. And then as Venus in the 12th house comes into a right angle with the chatty position for you of Uranus at the end of the week, again, there could be something talked about, something might be revealed suddenly. You might say something that you're not expecting to say. There is a bit of an impulse energy towards the end of this week. So I feel that generally, as much as the sun in the 11th house at this time of the year often sees you very happy to connect and be with other people, this is a more complex Christmas week. And therefore, if you feel the need to have a little bit more time to yourself, don't beat yourself up about it. The trick, of course, will be negotiating that freedom in a way that other people don't feel rejected and neglected. And you do your bit, you're dutiful, but I feel that at some point or another, you may just need a little bit more space to reflect. And you could find yourself hugely nostalgic, particularly by the end of the week. You could even hear from an old flame, and that connection could excite or alarm you depending on your exact circumstances. Equally, perhaps in an ongoing relationship, because of the 8th house energy of the quarter moon at the start of the week, very much to do with the depth of connections, and the position of Uranus in your 3rd house to the 12th house at the end of the week, I feel that you're going to be much more aware of how people feel and what their view on a situation is as the week draws to a close. And you could also fess up how you feel too. Have a lovely week, Pisces. I do hope you get those peaceful moments that I think are going to be important to you this year. Have a happy Christmas, take care, and goodbye. Your year 2025 personal forecast. You can get your free gift of your Zodiac General, Love, Chinese and Vedic written forecast and 30% off. Please click the link below for more.